My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. It is 2:41 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the top U.S. news highlights from the past 24 hours. S&P Global upheld the U.S. credit rating at AA+, attributing its decision to robust tariff revenues expected to bolster federal finances. That's according to Reuters. All of the economic reporting that I've seen so far, the tariffs are really pissing people off. For me personally, it's made it very difficult to know what to expect and how to price my products. I had to put extra effort into going and repricing everything so that I'm not going into debt when people are making purchases. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that is doing that. The tariff revenues is money that is being taken from Americans who are trying to conduct business that is doing harm financially to American consumers and American businesses. So I don't know why S&P Global would do that. So S&P Global, I'm just doing a Google search. They are an American publicly traded corporation headquartered in Manhattan, New York City. Its primary areas of business are financial information and analytics. So these guys have a political PAC, and they donated, the majority of their donations went to the Trump campaign. It says S&P Global operates a political action committee, PAC, funded by employee contributions. The PAC gives both parties, primarily Republicans, around 62% in a past cycle, aligning with business priorities, not any particular political ideology. My ass. These tariffs are largely destructive to the economy. There's no reason why they should be getting implemented. Trade was going just fine. Business was going just fine. If we're going to try and change the structure of how America does business, then we need to change our infrastructure first. If we have the opportunity to do that without pissing off our political allies, then we will be better off fixing the infrastructure and then trying to make those kinds of changes. It has caused extreme instability and is contributing to recession by inflation. So in no way are these tariffs good. So the only reason why I could see why this S&P Global would be making such statements regarding the tariffs as good in any way is because they're trying to manipulate the markets, and they have some sort of political gains to get out of this. Racketeering? Maybe? Wow. So I'm just going to insert my own opinion. This to me looks like a blatant contradiction, and from what I'm observing in the economy, everything Trump is doing has been cataclysmic. The stock market has been going like this. It's not stable. It's not reliable in any way. The tariffs have business owners stressed out. It's affecting business. It's making business more expensive. It's driving inflation. Inflation can cause a recession. And Trump's freaking attacks on America with this Gestapo and all that, he's just crashing the economy. To be reading anything saying that we have some sort of good rating, I don't care what it is, in regards to these tariffs, absolutely not. Its decision to robust tariff revenues expected to bolster federal finances. Trump is essentially, in my opinion, stealing from the American people with these freaking tariffs. S&P Global Monday affirmed its AA plus credit rating on the U.S., saying the revenue from President Donald Trump's tariffs will offset the fiscal hit from his massive tax cut and spending bill. Donald Trump is literally creating a situation where we are going to go trillions further into debt just because he wants to spend his ass off on shit we don't need. I'm expressing my thoughts and my opinions based on my observations as somebody who has been consistently reporting the news and tracking everything for the past 3 years in regards to what is taking place. No, I think that this is purely political. I think they have something to gain out of this. Their founders are James H. Mcgrawl and John A. Hill, President Martina Chuang. Headquartered in New York, CFO Ewout Steenbergen, CIO Swami Kocherlakota. This is what's in the news today, so I have to address it because people are going to be talking about it. This seems to me like propaganda and manipulation, and if anything, what I see, if they're going to give an AA plus rating, certainly looks like bootlicking to me. Nobody can quite lick boots like S&P Global. Somebody's got to make the deranged feel special. That's what's in my news report, and it's an opinion from a company. I am going to criticize it. It is an opinion. I disagree with your opinion, and I think that the people at S&P Global are a bunch of bootlickers. Yeah, I think this just does not take into account all the extra debt that's unnecessary that's being created right now by Donald Trump. That's great. He can steal from the American people to offset the harm that's being done, unnecessarily so. How do those boots taste? S&P? And he signs a dog shit on those boots? Anyways, policy shifts and institutional power. Federal oil and gas leases expand through 2040. The federal administration unveiled plans for over 30 offshore oil and gas lease auctions across the Gulf of Mexico through 2040, aligning with broader strategy goals. Vantage Data Centers to invest $25 billion in Texas AI campus. Vantage Data Centers confirmed plans to build a massive 1,200-acre AI-focused campus in Shackelford County, Texas, in a $25 billion development, marking one of the largest data infrastructure investments in U.S. history. Anheuser-Busch invests $15 million in U.S. brewery in a domestic manufacturing push. Anheuser-Busch InBev announced a $15 million investment in a U.S. brewery expansion. AAP recommends COVID-19 vaccines for young children. The American Academy of Pediatrics issued new guidance urging COVID-19 vaccinations for young children, a departure from current federal policy. Trump rules out U.S. troops for Ukraine, leaves door open for air support. President Trump clarified that while U.S. ground forces will not be deployed in Ukraine, he suggested American air support could be considered as part of a peace deal strategy. The markets closed today with the S&P 500 at $639.81, which is down 0.54%. That is a significant loss. SPDR Dow Jones Industrial Average ETF DIA closed at $449.29. That is up 0.08%. And Invesco QQQ closed at 569.28, down 1.35%, significant loss. And for those of you who are visual, this is the stock market. Right now, this is the S&P 500 for what it just closed at. The Dow Jones and Invesco QQQ. U.S. trade and economic headlines. Allied frustration grows over U.S. tariff delays. Key U.S. trading partners, including Japan, South Korea, and the U.K., are increasingly frustrated. These allies have yet to see promised tariff relief on autos and steel, despite agreeing to purchase commitments under informal deals with the Trump administration. The absence of formal terms has sparked confusion among global businesses and policymakers. U.S.-China trade truce appears steady. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed satisfaction with the current U.S.-China trade truce, noting the reduced tariffs from 145% down to 30%, and the resumed export of rare earth minerals from China are working pretty well, quote unquote. Both sides are discussing a potential meeting between President Trump and President Xi Jinping, though no date has been set. Small businesses show resilience amid trade uncertainty. Despite initial fears over tariff hikes, small businesses have adapted with effective overall rates, around 16% improved tax deductions, and rising consumer spending. Optimism is returning. The NFIB Small Business Optimism Index rose to 100.3 in July. Through micro businesses continue to face challenges. What is this? I'm sorry, but everything is questionable right now, and I gotta make sure that everything I'm getting is accurate because we have a flood of misinformation in mainstream media right now. The NFIB Small Business Optimism Index is a monthly survey conducted by the National Federation of Independent Businesses. We want to know who these people are. The National Federation of Independent Businesses is a non-profit, member-driven organization that focuses on legislative and regulatory issues. It does have affiliated PACs and individuals associated with the organization who have contributed to the Trump campaign. Loyalists, bootlickers. Wow, the media is really getting slanted. No, it angers me because I'm trying to report, and this is the kind of crap that I'm running into, and I'm finding that I'm getting a bunch of bullshit instead of actual information. And I want people to be educated and to be able to make informed decisions and understand what is going on around them. And when I've got falsified, slanted economic reports, that is not a clear or accurate indicator of how the economy is actually doing. I'm not trying to look for information coming from people who are engaging in market manipulation that are gaining something out of misreporting economic data. I'm really irritated that this is what's coming up in my stuff right now. I do the best that I can to try and keep everything fair and balanced and find accurate information. And I'm pissed that our media resources have become so corrupt that this is what is even showing up in my shit. But to be clear, these economic reports, this NFIB, as well as the one that was initially the S&P Global, those are both slanted towards pro-Trump freaking organizations that are very likely to be involved in some sort of market manipulation and possible racketeering activities. So in other words, there's no real reason for me to even be reporting on that, other than the fact that it's probably in the mainstream media and people are likely to argue about it. Bootlickers in the news. Alright, additional economic highlights. The Fed is navigating a growing dilemma. High inflation remains intertwined with booming investment in artificial intelligence, even as the housing sector struggles under high mortgage rates and hesitancy among homeowners to sell. Experts warn that prematurely cutting rates, likely due to political pressure, could fuel further inflation and destabilize broader sectors. Oh, by the way, I'm noticing that there's predatory advertising taking place on YouTube, encouraging people to try and take people's homes from them who are struggling financially right now. These are advertisements that I've been witnessing on YouTube, endorsing predatory practices to put liens on people's houses. Signs of fiscal dominance concern investors globally. Markets are increasingly signaling that central banks might be pressured to lower rates as a political maneuver, regardless of economic fundamentals. In the U.S. Treasury, Secretary Scott Bessent's rate cut lobbying, under pressure to reduce debt costs, adds to these inflation risk concerns. Analysts caution that this emerging fiscal dominance trend undermines central bank independence. Fed Chair's Jackson Hole address could rattle markets. Economic strategists, including Evercore, warn that Powell's upcoming speech at Jackson Hole could trigger a market correction of 7 to 15% if markets are disappointed, particularly if he signals only a modest 25 basis point cut rather than a more aggressive move. Markets remain sensitive amid surging AI investment and political scrutiny of the Fed. This is coming from Investopedia. Small cap stocks might be peaking. The Russell 2000 small cap index surged 2.9% in August, outperforming the S&P 500's 1.1%. RBC Capital suggests this momentum may not hold. Valuations remain elevated, and there's concern the rally is based more on speculative hope for rate cuts than on actual earnings improvement. Slow GDP growth forecasts further dampen long-term prospects, and that's what I feel we are largely witnessing in the markets when they spike, because the spikes have been erratic. It is based on speculation and people being in a frenzy, and it's not stable because the market has been doing this, and that's not good in my opinion, because it's not stable, it's not predictable, and I don't think it's a good environment for investment, and there's probably a good chance that whales are diving in and labor market complexity raises rate cut questions. Analysts note ambiguity in recent U.S. job data. Are slower job gains due to weakening demand or tighter labor supply spurred by immigration policy changes and retirements? Caution is advised before rushing to adjust policy. Housing activity also shows mixed signals, with a rise in starts but a decline in permits. Weakening demand or tighter labor supply? I would say probably both. Like, people are not spending their money on non-essentials right now. The cost of groceries has gone up significantly, and depending on what you're buying, it's almost double what it was 4 years ago. And then tighter labor supply, yeah, when it comes to being able to get our groceries. Like, those jobs don't pay well, and a lot of people are not even in those areas where they'd be able to work in the fields. People are not just suddenly rushing to go work in the fields when the president's only been in office for a couple months and is just trashing the entire structure of how this nation is meant to run. If we're going to make these kinds of changes, they need to be gradual. And I could definitely insert a lot more opinion in regards to what is going on with immigration, but I'm not going to do that. I have a whole Substack. We'll save that for another time. Save Treasury trade ahead of Fed cuts. Goldman Sachs recommends a U.S. 5-year Treasuries currently yielding 3.8% as top trade amid expectations of a Fed rate cut in September. A Reuters poll shows 61% of economists expect a 25 basis point cut at that meeting. These bonds are seen as a defensive hedge against market volatility. Fed official signals openness to fall rate cut. Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee acknowledged economic softness and inflation trends might warrant a rate cut in fall, possibly by September if data supports it. However, he emphasized a gradual data-driven approach. Here is the U.S. hazardous weather outlook for the next 3 days. West, Southwest, and Great Plains expect hot and dry conditions with highs climbing into the mid-90s, reaching 96 degrees Fahrenheit on Thursday. Elevated potential for wildfire ignition and heat-related illness. Advisories: stay hydrated, avoid outdoor activity during peak heat, and monitor local fire weather alerts. Midwest and Central U.S., a brief pop-up thunderstorm is possible late Tuesday afternoon. Otherwise, the region sees hot and mostly sunny skies with highs up to 96 degrees Fahrenheit by Thursday. Risk isolated lightning and brief rain are possible. Heat poses the main threat. Southeast and Gulf Coast conditions remain hot and humid with only scattered late afternoon showers expected. No widespread hazards, but heat stress remains a concern. Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, similar trend, hot and partly sunny weather with highs in the mid-90s. A sprinkle of afternoon storms may develop Tuesday and Saturday. Keep an eye on local forecasts for brief storm activity. Pacific and coastal areas, Southern California, a severe heat wave is underway. Many areas, including the San Fernando Valley, are under red flag warnings and extreme heat watches through the weekend. Inland areas are expected to see temperatures into the triple digits with thunderstorms possible by Friday or Saturday. East Coast and Atlantic waters, while Hurricane Erin remains offshore, it continues to generate a dangerous rip currents and large surf, particularly around North Carolina's Outer Banks. No direct U.S. landfall is expected in the short term. Texas and Southeast Houston area alert: strong thunderstorms likely Wednesday evening, driven by residual heat, energy, and moisture. Forecasts warn of wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. P2 quarter-size hail, frequent lightning, and brief heavy rainfall 1 to 2 inches. Widespread heat dominates much of the country, especially sharp in Southern California. Localized hazards, storm threats emerge in Texas. Thunderstorms possible in several regions, and dangerous surf persists along the East Coast. No national flood or tornado emergencies are currently active, but local advisories may still apply. And here are the key international news highlights for the past 24 hours. If there's any background noise, my cat has found a paper bag. The cat is in the bag right now. The cat is in the bag, quite literally. Putin and Zelensky open to direct peace talks. The White House announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin is willing to meet Ukrainian President Zelensky in what may become a pivotal step towards peace negotiations. Discussions are underway about potential locations, including Hungary, Switzerland, and possibly Budapest, with plans for either a bilateral or, if needed, trilateral meeting. That's according to the Washington Post and Times of India. Following the recent summit that just took place, Zelensky led a coalition of European leaders to the White House. He reiterated his call for security, guarantees voiced openness to further diplomatic engagement. This is following the summit where Putin and Trump met in Alaska. Gaza's ceasefire proposal gains traction. Hamas has accepted a new ceasefire proposal from mediators that closely mirrors a previous plan, signaling renewed hope for peace. The truce includes a 60-day pause in fighting, along with the release of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and partial Israeli withdrawal. Israel is currently reviewing the proposal while it demands full release of remaining hostages. Public pressure and international optimism adds weight to the deal. A UN-backed aid mission is delivering 1,200 tons of food to Gaza amid a mounting humanitarian crisis. Over 62,000 Palestinians have died, many of them children, as famine risks intensify. Global markets monitor Ukraine developments. Global markets are treading cautiously amid shifting geopolitical momentum towards potential Ukraine peace process. European stocks edged upward, oil prices softened slightly, and gold gained ground. Investors are also closely watching for clues at the upcoming Jackson Hole Symposium concerning Federal Reserve policy on inflation expectations. This concludes our daily news report. This cat is just losing her mind. I think she's like getting in and out of the bag, like running out. So mainstream economic and financial reporting tends to frame news in a way that emphasizes optimism or stability, even when underlying conditions are more precautious. Here's a few reasons for this: market sensitivity and narrative framing. Financial markets are highly sensitive to news. Media outlets often present economic developments in a way that avoids triggering panic in investors or consumers. This means headlines may stress a modest growth or resilience, even if debt, inflation, or labor trends are concerning. Commercial and political bias. Some reporting comes from outlets that are influenced directly or indirectly by financial institutions, advertisers, or political interests. Coverage may be subtly tailored to protect market confidence, support policy agendas, or maintain a narrative of economic competence. Reliance on aggregate metrics. Many economic reports emphasize headline statistics like GDP growth, S&P 500 levels, or unemployment rates. These numbers can mask regional disparities, underemployment, inflation pressures, or demographic specific impacts. News cycles often prioritize immediate events, stock movement, corporate deals, AI investment headlines, rather than structural risks like long-term inflation, public debt, infrastructure decay. This creates a perception that everything is fine because short-term indicators appear positive. Audiences respond more readily to positive framing. Media outlets know that dire economic warnings can depress readership or viewership, so there's an incentive to frame even mixed data as cautiously optimistic. While reports may highlight gains, investment, or policy moves positively, many structural risks, rising debt, inflation, housing stress, and political interference in policy are often underemphasized. That's why it's important to cross-check reporting against raw economic data, non-commercial sources, and regional indicators rather than relying solely on headline narratives. So, real quick check-in. I'm tired of the bullshit, to be frank. I am doing this because I need to know what's going on a daily basis. I want to stay on top of the news. And I want to cut the bullshit out of it. So I'm doing what I can to try and provide the facts and also cover ground that other people may not be covering, just to make sure that all of us collectively have all the facts of what is happening right now. But sometimes when I'm pulling data, it doesn't work out how it should. I have taken a multitude of precautions to try and make sure that my reporting is accurate. And as you can see, I've got some suspicious things showing up in my report. And I'm also making clear that I find it suspicious and why. But it indicates a bigger problem, and so I'm drawing attention to it. I don't like that this is happening where I've got these guys showing up as, presenting things as fact when they are manipulating the markets. That's certainly what it looks like to me. It certainly appears that this is market manipulation as far as what is going on with S&P Global. Looks like they're involved in something. As well as this other organization. So, when we're out here reporting the news, it's kind of hard to stay on top of absolutely every little thing and know who every person in the whole world is. And I am reporting on stuff that is happening all the way across the world. So, while I have my strengths, and I also have my weaknesses, and nobody's perfect, but I'm not gonna omit these things that are being reported, because they are being reported. They're being reported by other outlets, and so people are gonna be out here talking. So we might as well talk about these things. Not happy to see this going on. People need to know the facts. People need to know what is going on with the markets so that we can make right decisions, and our politicians need to be making right decisions. We need to stop with the world of la la land and start looking at what is actually going on so we can make right decisions, and our politicians can make right decisions, and people just need to be able to make right decisions, and we need to start making right decisions so things can be better. Because right now we are in a world where there's a bunch of war going on, and people are scared, and nobody can afford to eat, and the cost of housing is through the roof, and shit is just ridiculous, and there's no good enough reason for it other than the fact that there's a bunch of people out here acting like jackasses, allowing this small group of people to manipulate markets at the cost of suffering of billions of people. Not just the 340 million people residing in the U.S., but the rest of the world as well. Why? Because of jackassery. Because of a lack of willingness to be honest. For no good reason other than to pander to a small group of assholes who are ruining life for all of the rest of us when it doesn't need to be that way. That is my opinion. This is my perspective. I'm going to get out of here. Here's today's news reporting. It is 4:03 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on August 20th, 2025. I'm doing the best that I can to try and stay on top of doing daily reports. I'm a little bit late, but that little bit late is technically, one full day late, and it is because my sleep cycle has been blown to shit, and I am experiencing extreme anxiety, and I have just given up. I don't know what day it is anymore, and I'm just existing as I am constantly trying to solve the problems that Donald Trump is causing in my life, because this administration is absolutely out of control.
So the Olympics is great, and Johnny, for the others, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, it's too bad. One was in 2026, and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election, and now we won. So I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup. And everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey, guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA. Abolish MAGA. Fuck you, MAGA.